Welcome back to Piran Talks Beyond the Service Desk. This episode is going to feature on demystifying Microsoft 365 and a slightly different angle to the way that we normally approach our podcasts. On this episode, we're introducing Nick Banks from Ingram Micro, one of our distributors for Microsoft 365 licensing. Nick, would you like to cover a little bit about Ingram Micro and your role?
Absolutely. Nick Banks, work for Ingram Micro in the cloud team. So Ingram Micro is a business, it's global. So we work in around 200 countries, so massive scale. Read a little stat the other night that we're working with something like 90% or up to 90% of the world and wow, people within it. We have that sort of reach. I work in the cloud team, so I'm focusing on Microsoft 365, Copilot, security, doing a little bit of Azure as well. But we in the cloud team, we also do things like Google, AWS, Adobe, and hundreds of other brands. But also Ingram Micro do hardware and finance, and there's just lots of things that Ingram Micro do to support our partners. So yeah, it's a big global company, 23,500 plus employees.
And I think that does touch on exactly why we wanted you to come on board for this particular episode. Like we've had a number of episodes and we've focused on clients, and we had another couple of episodes where we focused on products and particular vendors and the like. And we really wanted to do something that would be a bit different and focus on an area that isn't normally seen by customers and people in the real world. And that is where distributors come in, basically. And fundamentally, for anyone out there that doesn't know, if we were going to go out, and here it's Microsoft, but it could just as easily be Cisco or Dell or you name it, largely those pieces of hardware, software are going to be brought into and managed via a distributor. Those are the people that are going to give you the best price. And beyond that, I guess, in terms of particular relation to Ingram, there are a significant amount of services that are an added value services that are provided by distributors like Ingram in terms of us being able to help you as a customer, basically. So when Microsoft is looking to bring people into the cloud, they will add incentives and promotions and the like, which Ingram will then pass through to us, but via a consultative process, which means that we can then give a better service. We can provide the expertise of the people at Ingram through to you at no cost, and means all customers basically have a better experience without an additional cost usually.
Which we've done actually very recently. Nick and I have spoken quite heavily in the last couple of weeks in relation to all sorts of different licensing. We're working through a couple of customers at the moment who are streamlining their licenses, as Nick knows, and looking to introduce the security benefits of the Microsoft E-Series, for example. So Nick has been in touch with a fantastic chap at Ingram called Peter Graham, who has helped us through all of the security demos and chats with one particular customer. But that conversation with Pete has benefited me because I can then have the same conversation with the other customer, essentially. Unfortunately, we can't name them because they're not case studies on our website currently. But from that side of things, it's a fantastic relationship that enables us to tap in to the knowledge that Nick and Nick's team have got from that side, or from Ingram. And that enables us then to deliver that value-added service.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Ingram really enable partners to
absolutely
go above and beyond, isn't it? Really,
exactly.
It's to deliver services that otherwise we might be getting slightly out of our depth with. And obviously, the range, particularly in Cornwall, of different types of customers is huge. Like I remember talking to a Cisco rep this was back in the day, and they'd done a study. Cisco, this was at the time. And Cornwall had the highest number of small businesses out of anywhere in the UK, basically. So a huge number of small businesses that are high growth, but also geographically very dispersed compared to, say, London or Bristol or Manchester or Birmingham and everywhere else. So that makes Cornwall a very unusual place to work. And a very interesting place to work, which I think we've found when we've been working
absolutely.
here. There's no customer that's identical to the previous customer, which makes every single job very interesting, but also quite taxing, I guess, as a provider, just because each customer wants you to know them, everything about their business, what's going to make them be successful. And as much as we want to be perfect, we're not. And that's where having external expertise really helps.
And also that's why, back in the old days, Microsoft may have worked directly with customers potentially for licensing and things like that. But in this modern kind of day, you need local specialists like Piran Tech that can actually support their customers with what they need, and they understand their customer, because that's where you are. Microsoft are based out of the States.
We're everywhere, weirdly, at the moment.
That's the whole role of a partner, working with a customer. So that's why you're so critical.
Well, that confusion, or that potential confusion, I should say, leads us in really nicely to why we're here. Our aim today is to demystify Microsoft 365 licensing, which, as we know, is an absolute minefield.
Oh, yeah.
And the understanding of the license schemes, what licenses are right for people, what features in each license, is a particularly complex element. And whilst Dan and I, from Piran's perspective, have a very good understanding of how that works, for customers and for new license types, Nick, I know you want to talk about Microsoft 365 E7 today. So it's having that relationship with Ingram that enables us to be kept up to date for our monthly sync calls, and our regular conversations anyway, on what's happening in the world of Microsoft. And that could range from new license types, Microsoft 365 E7, but also particular promotional offerings around the time Microsoft do them. Most recently, they've launched the Microsoft 365 Business Premium and Copilot for Business SKU, which combines both of those technologies into a particularly strong offering from a price perspective. But Nick,
yes,
demystifying Microsoft 365, take it away.
I guess that's why that's one of the main reasons my role exists. Actually, my team kind of exists because it is quite confusing. There are lots of licenses. As a customer, you've got to kind of work out what is going to work for me as a business, what's going to be the most cost effective, am I going to get the most out of this license? And we do see it sometimes that customers maybe are paying for licenses that perhaps they're not getting the full benefit out of.
And that's ignoring the complications of some of the names are quite similar.
Yeah,
like there's an Office 365 E3, but there's also an Enterprise E3 SKU.
Microsoft 365 E5. Office 365 E5.
There's that complication about 300 users on Business Premium. Business Premium is a really good package, but you hit 300 users and you basically have to get gone pretty much is the advice.
Well, that's worth noting actually that's one of the points on the business SKUs. You can have 300 users, but only, so that's collective. So whether they're business basic, business standard and business premium.
All combined,
your total, if it exceeds 300, you're breaching Microsoft's terms and conditions, which is certainly a fun one.
Yes.
Thankfully it's not come up.
And actually, if you're an organization of 900 users, perhaps a business SKU from Microsoft isn't the best solution for you. You probably do need to start looking at enterprise grade everything, really. But Business Premium is kind of the hero SKU for SMB customers, so sub 300. So what they're going to get from that is, some security, MFA, things like that, Intune. So Microsoft has a product called Intune, which means you can remotely manage wipe devices. Some customers may not know the value of these products, and the thing that Microsoft do really well is they bring all those products into one package, so it's one bill, one solution, one kind of pane of glass, if you like, to manage the whole tool set, and that's what we feel customers do want. Having lots of different providers can be great, you can fill all the gaps, but actually what Microsoft do very well is bring it all in under one roof, really.
That's one of the things I've found quite difficult with Microsoft licensing is you open up the comparison page and there is like 5-6 pages of features, and which ones do I need? Well, I don't know. Basically, I get overload after like 7. I think that's a typical male perspective. But then across 5 different packages, that becomes totally unmanageable. I know as a customer, I generally want a good range that gives me what my business needs and a bit of everything. And that kind of is Business Premium to an extent. But beyond that, it's almost too difficult for my mind to take stock of where should I go or what should I do. And then again, that's where you guys come in, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we recently picked up a property lettings company in Cornwall, unfortunately as much as I can say, but we picked them up quite recently because they were told by another provider that they needed to introduce Business Premium to use Enter ID.
Yeah,
which just isn't not true.
Yeah, you can use it.
It's available in business standard, and it was that trust and that relationship that we were able to build at the sales stage to be able to say, well, no, that's not correct. I mean, it has its benefits. Don't get me wrong, of course it does. But introducing business standard, if you're just needing Enter ID, business standard is the route to go. And it's that understanding that's built from the relationship with Ingram and our knowledge of Microsoft 365 licensing and the stack as a whole that enables us to then pass that value added service to customers and that consultancy. And that's at no charge to them beyond, please sign the dotted line, we'd like to deal with you.
It might be worth a quick overview of Enter ID and Purview and so on, because these are emerging technologies we're hearing a lot about.
Absolutely.
But to a lot of people, I mean, to me as an engineer, I first started dealing with that as the Azure AD connector. And historically, what that meant was most customers had a server in their office of some kind, even if they were down to like 3 users plus, basically, sometimes even smaller. And it's got all those usernames and passwords on it that are how I log into Windows in the morning, or Mac if you've got a Mac. And what Azure AD allowed you to do is take those usernames and passwords and sync them across to your email, basically. And then a few years back, Microsoft basically renamed it in a marketing. Like, I think even the developers at the time were saying, well, there's no reason for this, but
I remember this.
Somebody's told us we have to do it. And so it became Enter ID. But since then, it's kind of grown, really, and become a significant it's kind of because it's authentication, it's kind of the hub of security at this point. Yeah. And because security is we've all seen the malware attacks and what have you. Security in the cloud is a constant area for I guess fear and wanting to be protected. And so this is where Purview and protection starts to be Microsoft, among with other products like Sentinel. And this is the problem. There are lots of them. That ability to secure your cloud, I guess, and manage it in terms of things like preventing data loss, preventing someone, particular employee, walking off with the designs for the nuclear atomic accelerator or whatever it happens to be that you happen to be building out the back.
I don't think we've got any of that.
I haven't, but the customers have. That's for certain. Gigawatt, was it the gigawatt? Flux capacitor, that's the one well, no one wants to let go of their own design for the flux capacitor. I mean, I'm with them there. It looked really cool in Back to the Future. Anyway, I digress.
We should point out that none of our customers have designed the flux. Well, to our knowledge, the flux capacitor. Oh, sorry, too much.
So back to you. I thought it was worth covering that because
a
lot of people out there as customers just don't know what Enter ID. I mean, it's just a word along with Purview, and I thought segueing into that.
Very recently, we've had subject access requests for leavers of organisations where they've requested data, and Purview is a fantastic tool for that kind of that kind of request. Where I think the terms were they needed first name, last name. And as you can imagine, that returned quite a lot of results. But fine tuning that down then within that, is really, really fantastic in terms of what Microsoft can do. And it's a really good look at what's under the hood. Because it's the stuff that we don't see a lot of until those requests come in, and it brings kind of that whole Microsoft ecosystem together, where it's looking at Teams messages, it's looking at documents, it's looking at SharePoint, it's looking at OneDrive, emails, and all of that comes together. And that's when, ironically, as an MSP, we see the value straight away of Microsoft's stack.
It is Microsoft's advantage. I mean, they own the whole stack, therefore it's quite easy for them to integrate it. I mean, I think we all have our own skepticism about their first attempts at integrating things, but generally version 2 works all right.
Yeah, absolutely. You never want to be the earlier adopter. No. And that's true of anything, to be fair.
Even to go really basic, customers would used to think of Microsoft, it's just Office, wasn't it? Office 365. And I think that was probably, how long ago was that now?
2010 we did the beta, I think it was. Before that it was BPOS, and I think BPOS was still going at that point, which was basically, I remember lots of green websites, and that's about it.
Before my time,
it was not mine, I think, not super pretty, but it fundamentally was just an Exchange server that was hosted by Microsoft in those days. Which, I mean, at the time we were a Google provider because Google had just arrived and just said, right, let's reinvent everything from scratch. And then I think that really triggered Microsoft to go, okay, guys, let's take this seriously because lots of customers are moving to Google. And then they did some unusual activities to make it difficult to work with Google, as you'd expect. Not saying anything about Internet Explorer or Edge.
I'm a fan of Edge and Internet Explorer, by the way.
Wow,
you might be the only
one of very few.
I don't mind it, but I'm still.
I'm not just saying that because I've worked with Microsoft and for Microsoft.
I think anyone who do you like Bing? I think would be a good question.
That's
another kettle of fish. Let's not go there.
I recently learned that they've got a reward scheme.
Bing rewards.
Yeah, Bing rewards. I don't know how good it is, but
what kind of reward would you get?
I'm not entirely sure. Search credits. I mean, Bing is really good for Microsoft-related stuff. Funnily enough, being Microsoft search engine, it's really good at picking up Microsoft articles.
I find myself doing things like the Microsoft partner dashboard, and I have to go to Google in order to search it up. I mean, it's a really simple URL. It's like partner.microsoft.com or something like that. But Bing can't find it. And if you go and you do a Bing search, which obviously even like everything tries to make it as the default, I just get completely different result, and then really useless results. You go to Chrome on Google on Chrome, because by default it will try and make you use Bing on Google. And then you just get the results you're looking for, which I know it's just I love Microsoft, obviously, through and through, but there's parts of me that not so much of a fan of.
Oh, it's just like when you change your default browser. So I've recently got my new laptop. Setting that up, and I'm working in sort of sales and customer accounts. It's very rare that I have to set devices up now, but just going through and trying to set my default browser, and you go in, okay, that's done.
And yet Bing is still there.
But then Bing is still there because now they've changed it. So when you open a link in an email, you have to change the setting in Outlook to say, I'd like to use Chrome, please.
Do you still use search engines to search for things? Really?
I use a lot more of Copilot since we've got it, and Copilot has been amazing. Working with, ironically, this is kind of our next segue into things, so this is probably a really nice opportunity to move that way.
That wasn't planned, by the way.
No, it wasn't. None of our podcasts is scripted.
I as weirdly as an IT person, I'm the Luddite in the room. I was very slow with social media, and I'm very slow with moving away from Google search. I do use Copilot, but and I definitely see the advantages, but I also see the disadvantages, I guess. And you only have to do a search in any, like if I'm on my phone and search for something and you get the default Gemini response and it's just, okay, well, I know that's not true. And then I'll scroll down to the source.
Check the sources.
In 1917, it wasn't possible to use Wi-Fi. No, that's true, but things have changed.
It's but that segue into ironically cost optimization with like Copilot in particular, where we've used it recently. We're obviously working, as Dan knows, with an organization at the moment around streamlining their costs, and just that peace of mind check of looking and going, right, okay, E3 has definitely got this feature or that feature, and that's where Copilot really does come alive with the Microsoft's internal
and I have seen
knowledge
as
base.
A Luddite, I've seen that.
It's amazing and so helpful. What would take you 10 minutes of Googling to find the right article, you just chuck your question into Copilot and it spits it back out.
I do not use any social media. I don't use social media either, but I don't use any search engines anymore. I just use Copilot Chat.
So
if I get a really, really complicated question from a partner which I don't understand, I just type in pretty much word for word what I'm being asked, and it will spit out a response based on that question perfectly with a really nice succinct kind of paragraph on what it is.
When Nick says partner, he means me.
I do mean Sam, yeah.
And I think that will work really well, particularly for because you focus on Microsoft. But I think it's an area, like I see AI as being, a lot of people are scared by AI because it has lots of connotations, and I step back from, because is it going to take all the jobs of the factory workers? No, because they need robots to do the things that are happening in the factory, right? AI itself isn't going to be shucking oysters. It's just not able to do that at the moment because they haven't built the robot that does it. In the future, maybe. Up to now,
we don't know the future, do we? Really?
Exactly, but it's a little way off. In that respect. So what it is a really good tool, and I guess the key is to use that. Like what I worry about in terms of just going to Copilot as opposed to search is the same thing as people going into social media bubbles. Like the information, like Copilot is a search engine, it's just a way of human language interpreting what you're looking for and searching for, and then how you present the results. In a weird way, you could say it's a bit like a very good grammatical spell checker, and combined with a search engine tool.
You've just got to remember to tell it to use UK English.
So it's only as good as the search engine. And if you were to use Bing as a search engine, as we've already found, it comes back with results that miss the actual results you want. So I just think you've got to have that bit of balance.
It comes down to prompting as well as
it does.
It does. It's how good you are at coding.
Exactly. And if you're not prompting and giving enough detail, then you're not going to get a great response out of
bad in is bad out.
Yeah. That's a nicer way of putting it. But but on the Copilot chat as a product, that comes within any Microsoft 365 license. So that's a free search tool that anyone can get access to that's got a 365 license.
Yeah.
Obviously there is a paid for version which gives you that personal assistant within your 365 apps like Outlook, Teams, Word, PowerPoint. So there is a step up called Copilot for Business, which I think came out in late last year, December-ish sort of time, I want to say. But that is a new product for the SMB market. It's less money than the Copilot for 365 SKU. So that was more aimed at the enterprise customers, but it was a little bit
over the top,
costly for perhaps an SMB customer. But there's I know you've got a couple of good examples recently of customers that you've sold those into.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's always promos on all the time as well, so it's always worth checking in with you.
Definitely felt a bit like they came up with a price and then almost immediately realized it was too high, and then had an offer that kind of dropped it down for good chunks of people. And then there's a lot of customers then, but they made the terms of that, if you're using it, you can't use the offer. Type, like you have to be a new user, which you can't retroactively go back and make yourself a new user in order to get an offer that you've just announced. But now they're sort of rebalancing the ship a little bit.
It's where Microsoft actually have listened to the channel. I think the one thing that everybody has said since Copilot's adoption, not even adoption, but introduction, really, everybody's kind of said, wouldn't it be nice if this was in a Microsoft product? Built into Business Premium, built into E3, E5, and it hasn't been. Microsoft have looked at it and gone, from a cost perspective, it's difficult to do that. But most recently, they've launched a promo, which I think is coming to an end, ironically, but they've launched a promo on Microsoft 365 Business Premium and combining that with Copilot for Business, which we work with a large insurer or financial services company then within Cornwall, who have recently taken out a large number of those, that particular license SKU, and it's fallen perfectly for them at their renewal, where they've then been able to maximize their efficiency. They've got some work to do with privacy policies and AI policies internally before they can
mentioning as well.
Massive. It must be introduced for organizations using Copilot. But from that side of things, once that rollout is completed and that work internally is done, they can then introduce the use of Copilot for everybody. They've gone in, they've made use of that promo, which I think was something like 50% off, which is crazy.
Not quite that high, but it was very good. But it worked out that Copilot as a product was almost 50% discounted when you add it in with Business Premium. So it's
I mean, from that side, it's a significant cost saving for them, which has been absolutely amazing.
I know they're very happy.
I'm massively happy, and that's introduced then. I mean, it's built the relationship with them from our perspective. It's got us back into a position where we're able to get into quarterly meetings with them, so that we can streamline the service that we provide, and that then could tap into your team, Nick, or with you, and bringing you guys in from a professional services point of view if it's something that we can't cover internly.
You've not got the bandwidth because you're just busy with other things as well.
I think there was an example of agent, helping customers with the development of more sophisticated agents for a very large customer.
So viewers watching may remember Matt Bromley from Ward Williams, who featured on episode 1, I think it was, off the top of my head.
It was,
they've recently employed an AI specialist who is taking forward a huge AI project for them. We can't go into the full details, obviously, but from that side of things, they're looking at agent deployment and development, and really.
And we're going to see that a lot more.
Absolutely.
A lot more.
But I think that the thing that we're all waiting for there is kind of the fine tuning and polishing of those tools to allow for that to happen, which is starting to become more prominent. The initial tools I felt were okay, but a bit limited. Always the thing for me is Microsoft, the first version, they have almost like 3 versions. The first version just doesn't work. The second version works, but it's clunky. Third version, oh my God, it's really good. That is a general rule of thumb. Not always, but like as a general approach.
That's certainly been true of Copilot. I think, when Copilot was first launched, it had real potential, but it wasn't quite there.
And that's the thing with the, I guess, the cloud products and the SaaS kind of way of life, is that they're constantly evolving and updating the product. You pay your monthly fee, but actually the product's going to continue to get better and more secure, all these sorts of things. And again, Copilot, when it was first launched, didn't have things like the Copilot dashboard, so you can see what ROI it's driving. Because again, that's an important thing. This is not a free product.
In terms of licenses, absolutely. I mean, if you buy 200 Copilot licenses, that's not an insignificant amount of money.
You want to see the value.
You want to know that the people out there are using it, basically, and getting some return on investment.
Thankfully now.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're a business and you've paid for this product, and there's certain users in the organisation that are not using the tool, is that because they maybe need? It might be a training need, right?
Like that,
probably is.
I mean, like they're Luddites like me.
Yeah,
they need just showing how to use it. I think because the default is it's the same as people back in the day. What's a good example? People in Google insisting on using Outlook, and that was like always a red flag of that's not going to work out because it's like Google wants you to use just the web page for your email. And in the same way, if you've got people that are just I'm not going to use AI, they could be because of fear, could be because of lack of knowledge, a bit of training, a bit of showing that it's not here to take your job, it's to help make your job easier. It's a tool that allows you to then kind of improve adoption and roll out and get better value for money.
And there are funding programs for this that Ingram Micro have. If customers are interested in the product itself but they're not quite sure where to start or how to secure their data, then there are
security is, I think, the big one. I mean, what I thought it might be worth an example of why you want to add security before rolling out Copilot. I thought a lot of people will be out there. I think they'll have licenses. They'll think, cool, Copilot, whack it on just for me and 4 or 5 other people. Boom.
Yeah. The problem with Copilot, I think, is from an understanding perspective from a customer side is they assume it's ChatGPT, which it is to an extent.
Use the same LLM.
Yeah, exactly. From that side of things, it's that much is correct. But when you're using a licensed version of Copilot, the data that you're putting in is contained to your tenant, and that is the real key focus of it. So we have sold Copilot to an organisation recently who said that they were using ChatGPT and they were putting meeting minutes from AGMs into ChatGPT. Which is fine actually if you're on the paid for ChatGPT, but if
it's HR information, for example, or payroll information,
exactly. Take that and make that
available to everyone.
Exactly. You're putting that data into a large
search engine.
It's essentially a search engine. You're publishing that information without really knowing that you've done that, and that's the problem I think with AI is that it's come about so quickly and it's so readily accessible that people aren't considering what they're putting into it.
What if the junior who's only been with the company for 1 week says, what is the wage of, give me a list of everyone's wage, tell me the list of all the customers, and also get me the most privileged and secure information that you've got. And I mean, and it's going to try and work out what is the most privileged and secure information. It's trying to help you. That's what AI does.
Guardrails in before you start to.
And that's where having the permissions and things in place. So, when we sell a Copilot license, we take the time to sit with customers and say, are you happy with your SharePoint permissions and that people can't just access everything? And we will complete that assessment for them if necessary to ensure that they're not going to grant, if I turned around and asked Copilot in Piran, what's Dan's annual salary? I know I won't get the answer because our permissions
are set
already,
correctly.
Ironically, you're welcome to have that information. But
ironically, it formed part of our testing process of our, Dan and I were working when we, as part of our Microsoft partner status, we get Copilot licenses included. So we were deploying it and we were testing it and trying to find, what information can it find? Is there stuff that it shouldn't do? And, we put a series of those questions in. So now when Dan looks at my search history from Copilot for the Copilot dashboard, he knows that was a legitimate.
I think this is technically good because I'm quite lazy in that respect.
But from that side of things, putting that security and, as Nick said, the guardrails in place is really the paramount.
When you've got employees, you need to make sure that the private information of those employees is protected. The same when you've got customer information, etc.
And actually, all Copilot does is shine a light on that aspect of your business, actually. So these are things that we probably all should have in place already, but perhaps we're not investing in that area, which we should be. As a
lot of the time, I think there's a pressure to get things done, move on to the next thing. It works, move on. And security is often the last thing because it requires testing, and like that testing of things requires sort of bandwidth, which none of us have in this day and age.
And that's where dealing with an MSP works really well, because our sole aim as an MSP is to take the headache of IT away from people. And that's where us doing that assessment and checking the permissions and putting the guardrails in means that the owners of the companies that we're working for can focus on running their company, and we look after.
That's kind of the bit they're good at, isn't it?
Exactly.
And you do the bit that you're good at, which is support customers with their IT.
Exactly. I don't know the first thing about property lettings, but I know about security. I know about adopting Copilot and all of that sort of stuff. So it leaves our the organisations that we support to focus on what's important.
Yeah.
And that is ultimately running their business, because it has to be. And we cover everything else. Well, not everything. We cover the IT. We can't do everything.
If you can't do it, I'm sure we'll do it.
As we were saying earlier, I can't do plastering. My back is not up to it.
No, my brother's a plasterer. I am not.
I can appreciate it. I mean, it's great when it's done, but in the same way, I can't paint. Not in a way that you want in your house.
I've painted a few walls in my time, and thankfully they look okay. But it's not about to become a profession. Okay, well, that moves us really nicely into how we can support businesses with things like cost optimization and service streamlining more than anything. So we'll use this opportunity to kind of run through the different NC commitment terms with Microsoft, and some of the upcoming things. For example, the end of the grace period with Microsoft 365 licensing, which has been around for really since its inception, which is obviously quite a big change. So
is it worth mentioning what NCE is?
NCE, so NCE is what's called the new commerce experience, and it's not that new anymore, to be perfectly honest.
It's quite a few years old. It's the old commerce experience.
Really badly named, but anyway, the new commerce experience was launched probably 3-4 years ago now, and what that did was it introduced different commitment terms for Microsoft 365 licensing, and different pricing based on those commitment terms. So traditionally, you on the old CSP model, you used to be able to up and down your licenses at your own choosing, whenever you liked. NCE brought about tie-ins for cheaper pricing, and different payment terms. So, for example, you've got monthly licensing on a monthly commitment, paid monthly, lots of monthlies, but essentially that comes at a 25% price hike on.
Because it's your most flexible option.
Because it's the most flexible option.
You can cancel anything pretty much at any time, up or down it, whatever you want.
Microsoft looked at it and went, that's a premium offering. We're going to put a price tag on it.
It's the same as like a mobile phone contract, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 1 month pay as you go is the most expensive, and you'll know you can reduce that down a hell of a lot by contracting in effectively.
Yeah, it's really suitable for organisations like the Arthur Silly Steamship group that we support. They're quite seasonal with their staffing, so from that side of things, in the winter they have less staff on than they do in the summer, which means that they can reduce their costs during that window. It does come at a slight price premium, but they're happy with that, and it was.
But actually, it might come at a premium, but over the course of the year,
it's a saving.
Exactly. If you've only got, if you lose half your licenses for half the year, that's a big chunk of money. And I think one of the advantages, I guess, is that you can mix and match, which a lot of people don't realise.
It doesn't work like Google. Google's, if you want to upgrade one license, you have to upgrade the whole tenant. There are caveats to that, but essentially that's how it works.
But in the same breath, if you want the cheapest possible pricing, you kind of know what your user base is going to look like. You can pay annually up front, and you can save up to 25% of the cost. So if you can commit and you know that that's what your user base is going to look like, then you can get a benefit in saving that way as well.
And that's basically the tiers, isn't it? So you've got like totally flexible. Then you go, right, well, I'm going to commit for a year, but pay monthly. And then at the top end, for the maximum amount of savings, you're going to commit to a year and pay up front, which gives you, was it 25%? But you need a lot of cash in the bank if you've got a lot of
I mean,
users.
the savings can be even more than that, potentially. I know like Microsoft E5 currently are launching this, I think it's a 10% off on
new customers again.
For new customers, sadly. But yes, from that side of things, if there's promotional pricing available, it's 25%, potentially some more.
Another angle, which is still quite new, but 3-year commitments as well. So it's only available at the moment, I think, on the enterprise SKUs. You have to have 100 or more in our sort of indirect channel. But you can get a discount for taking out that offer, and you can get commitment, a price price lock for 3 years as well. So that's good, because obviously price rises happen
these
most
days.
years.
I mean, not that there's going to be another oil crisis in the next. Oh, whoops.
Tell us about it. But from that side of things, those commitment terms are particularly useful, and the ability to mix and match. Try to say both words at the same time. The ability to mix and match those license types is particularly beneficial to organisations like the Alza Steam.
And that's why, again, something that Piran can offer, license reviews with customers. That's critical,
and we do like it. It's a big part of what we do on a day out between the two of us.
Debbie and Gemma handle our renewals, and February is by far their least favourite month.
I was there claiming the fame there, but they actually do most of the work in terms of liaising with customers. Like generally,
busy time of year.
Yeah, so what Sam and I do is generally kind of the high level and strategy development side of things combined with licensing, whereas if you've just got license queries directly, then it's easier to go through to Debbie and Emma.
I think from that side of things, Debbie, Gemma and Emma, that's really horrible name combination, to be fair. Lovely people, awful name combinations, but the admin team really then at Piran are fantastic at handling those renewals, and if there are pricing queries or license SKU queries or feature queries, that's where Dan and I come back into that role. So it enables Dan and I to focus on, as Dan's rightly pointed out, the strategy for organisations, and if that taps into some license strategy as well.
It always ends up at the end of the day, because that's where things get complicated. Whereas 100%. If you Debbie, Gemma and Emma,
you're far better than I am.
I don't know, I've been practicing. If there's like upcoming prices changes from Microsoft, they are really good at being able to liaise and say, well, do you know what, if you bought a license now for the new pricing, that will lock you in the pricing even though it's just one license. That kind of not manipulation but optimization is what they're really good at.
We see that a lot. Microsoft, it's not always exact, but they tend to do price reductions or increases in March sort of time in September. So that's when you see a lot of renewals happen, because customers, or you advise your customers to lock in the price at that point.
February is a busy month.
Very.
And that's the right thing to do.
But it's that knowledge and those monthly meetings where we're made aware of a potential price rise or cost adjustment. We should call them from Microsoft. That's the official terminology. And to be fair, that's more than fair, because they do go down. They did recently drop, and they're now unfortunately on the way back up by the sounds of things.
Everything goes up in price all the time.
It's the joy of life, isn't it?
We just need the pound to go really bad against the dollar, because I know that's their benchmark. So from
the opposite. If it goes the other, if the pound goes bad against the dollar, prices go up.
That doesn't make sense to me, but yes, in my head it's thinking on the fly. But from that side of things, the better the pound's doing, the better. Microsoft
actually, there is something coming in July this year. So there's a feature update and a price increase.
Yes,
I shouldn't say increase, but there is a price increase. But a lot, Business Premium, thankfully, is staying the same, but every other license pretty much is going up in cost. It's varying dependent on the license, but from July 1st. It's
important to note as well that actually this year brings about some big feature changes in those licenses as well. So I know that, for example, Business Premium is about to get Business Standard is about to get 100 gig mailboxes.
All the business licenses do.
Plus a whole host of other.
So you are paying a little bit more, but actually you could potentially save money, because some customers tend to license and exchange online license on top of a Business Premium or a Standard to get bigger mailbox. So actually you could cancel those licenses,
just have the one.
So again, that's where that cost optimization and working with organizations who have been in that position is quite useful. The potential to stitch in online exchange, archiving licenses, that sort of thing. That's obviously an add-on for all of the SKUs to enable that archiving of
and I think it would be true to say that the fact that it's set by Microsoft in America is the key thing. So it's outside of actually all of our control to an extent.
Yeah.
It's because not only is it set in a different country, but there is an exchange rate between the dollar and the pound that directly impacts the price to us as business users in the UK. And so that is what introduces the ability for I guess our expertise between all of us to actually make a difference, because like, one, there's a lag, two is in terms of how and when it's communicated, and then two, what is the change? Is it up or down? When is it introduced, and how can we work around it, if that makes sense? Because usually there's a renewal contract date and a date where maybe price changes come in. A lot of the time we have to have a sort of, we know it's probably going to be something around March / sometime, and it's but even that used to be set in stone by Microsoft, like twice a year on a particular time of year, but they've removed that now. So it does take a little, the expertise more and more is becoming a factor, I think, in that process.
Yeah, I think we should also know as well, we what's really frustrating, I think, as a partner, is knowing that the price rise or price change is happening, but not knowing what those rates are.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. The first thing a customer asks is like, how much is that going to be and which products?
And I mean, we get some indicative possible figures, but there's no exact science on that at all.
So they generally put out the dollar price.
Yeah.
So you can guess, but you can't be accurate. So that's why we can never find out until the month before.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and I think that's the most frustrating thing, because naturally, as soon as you say price change, everybody assumes it's going up, firstly.
Yeah.
And if it's going up, they want to know to what.
And when.
And when. When we can do. We can't do what.
Well, no, even the when is like, we might know that it's coming in, but we might not know when it's actually happening until the month before, effectively.
Well, yeah, we get generally, this one's been quite well published from Microsoft. I think we've known since January, roughly. So from that side of things, Microsoft have possibly listened there. It's the first time that's happened, we should point out. So,
but that's not to say that this isn't going to be the only one.
No,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, especially with inflation going a little bit crazy, potentially everyone is guessing at this point, because we're in the middle of I don't want to say crisis, but it's a crisis for America that is impacting everyone, as always is the case, going back to, I don't know, every crisis that's existed, financial crisis, or .com crisis, they're all set in America and trickle down to the rest of the real world as and when.
Yeah. Well, that really, I guess, covers kind of how we cost optimize and streamline services for our customers, which probably moves us into really our common questions that we hear, which happens quite a lot. We get a lot of questions. I sat and I thought about them as much as I could prior to kind of running into this. And one of the most frequently asked questions is, I guess, around the feature sets in particularly the enterprise licensing, because they're the organizations that typically really care about what's in each term. I mean, obviously lots of organizations do, but we hear it more with the enterprise series because there's so much covered within those, within those SKUs. And the common misconception that I hear all the time is, well, we'll just go to E5 because we get everything and we get it for this price. Now, that's great. But also, if you move it to E3, and if you have no interest in using the full suite of Defender, for argument's sake, E3 and some add-ons might be the most cost-effective route. So
actually, within E5, you get Power BI Pro and also Teams Phone Standard. So these are products that you may not need. So if you do not need those products, then you're paying more for those products. So actually, E3 might be a better example, and then you just maybe add on E5 security if you want to kind of bolster your security. So that's again, that might be a way to save some costs potentially as well.
Well, even that's changed now. It's Defender Suite, isn't it now? They've changed the namings, and this is something that that's our job, is to stay on top of all of those changes as they happen.
Which there are a lot of them. Like, again, that comparison table. There's a really good website that we use that basically allows you
365 maps.
Yeah, you can put in the various plans, and it will draw you a comparison table of everything in it. Yeah. But you are literally scrolling.
I think
scrolling
to get to the bottom of it. There's so much. I think you introduced me to it actually, which isn't. I can't lie.
Isn't an official site, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's very good.
But it's very good.
Yeah, it's largely accurate. And I did notice that Business Standard has got 100 gig mailbox on there the other day. So I sent an email and went, it's on here now, but it's not true yet. This comes in July. So from that side of things, it's for Dan and I, and obviously Nick, for yourself, as a sales tool, it's really useful when somebody says, well, what are the differences? Rather than sitting and having to type an email that goes, well, you get this in this and that, and we can largely put the the predetermined, license types that are under consideration and send them across. And, that's used, we used it in the last 24 hours, I can tell you that much.
I think what you said just a minute ago, you touched on some very good advice, which is fundamentally worth reiterating, which is don't buy around what you think you might use, because you're going to pay for it from now until you can actually get round to using it. And you may find that you cannot use it. A good example being Teams Phone. There are lots of people that want, I'd love to use Teams for my phone system, and then maybe find that Teams has some limitations in terms of phone systems, and I can't afford to actually integrate it with my existing phone system. We'll put that on pause, and that's an expensive mistake. You can always pay to upgrade midterm to a better, bigger, more expensive package.
Yeah. 100%.
Use what you've got, I guess, would be the thing. Get to terms and then expand when you're ready.
And as we know, you're not able to downgrade.
You cannot downgrade.
So
that's the killer.
E5, you, until your renewal period is due. You've got that 7-day window. That's
and it's not an insignificant amount per user.
Oh no, it's not. E5 is it's around double the price, I think, from memory. It's not far off.
Yeah, I think E3 is something like 30, around the 30 mark.
Yeah,
E5 is 50.
And phone systems are a great example for that, because the number of times I've come across somebody who's got a phone system, they want to simplify to something, and then they discover, after they've given the go ahead and let's buy it and let's go for it, I've just found out I've got a 5-year contract on my phone system and I have to keep on using it. Like, can we just undo all of that? And occasionally you get to a point where you have to deliver the bad news, which is like, it's out of my hands at this point.
Microsoft does play well with other third-party providers, though, so you can get
it does.
Operator Connect, so you can plug in a third-party cooling plan.
You can do some really cool stuff. Absolutely. They definitely should work on that, though, I think. So there's a lot of.
We've got the digital switch off, haven't we? Or analog switch off. That was pushed back, wasn't it? Was that supposed to be last year?
It was pushed back to next year.
Which isn't
March, I think.
Remember how the TV digital, how widely that was kind of broadcast? You don't really hear about the.
Well, it's like the Millennium Bug in my eyes. It was one of those like, oh my god, it's happening, and it's like, it happened. That was it. But it's one of those things where so much energy and time went into it that if you didn't do it, things would have gone crazy. But because they did, it was fine.
I think last year there was some really interesting stats actually around that switch off, and it was like 60% of businesses didn't know it was happening. The coverage on it has been awful. Thankfully,
and it keeps getting extended. Back. That's the thing, in various different ways.
The issue is because I think it's from
like
the
Windows
domestic.
XP, and it's like
but from a business perspective, most businesses generally will have some form of phone system, be it ISDN or something. They've got a system in place, so they've got an established contract with somebody. But the problem is with the digital switch off for domestic customers, particularly in Cornwall. Internet connections are just, in some areas.
I thought Cornwall was really good.
The crazy thing is Cornwall is really good compared to everywhere else. There's places in central London where you're like, oh my God, what the hell's going on?
I get 30 meg at home at best.
There's places in central London, well, this is going back a year, but there were people on ADSL still.
I can't get fibre into most of central London. We've got a few customers there, and they've said, can we get broadband connection? And I'm like, you can get broadband. You aren't going to want to use it. It's which is a real shame. But you've also then got a whole host of third-party providers in Cornwall. Wildernet is the one that really gets the most coverage at the moment. They've been awarded the contract essentially to roll broadband out, and there's some controversy around that now because they've been unable to deliver upon it, but that's a separate conversation.
That is because it's Cornwall.
Exactly. Costs are exponential.
Stretch the distance of every single connection.
100%. And, so there's obviously some complications around that. We won't go into it, but from that side of things, using Central London as an example, those providers have gone across then to third-party lease line providers, and they've put stuff in which as an organization it'd be lovely to make a sale, of course, but we're not sales focused. So I'm not judged on commission, I'm judged on customer retention. So if the customer goes and they can get a lease line at half the cost from another provider that's
happy
native
days.
to Central London,
to pay money
great,
for.
do it. Get it in, get it sorted, and we'll do everything after that in terms of.
That's the beauty of our kind of industry. If your customer's succeeding, you're succeeding as an organisation, and that means that we succeed as well. So
that's what it's not about selling boxes or getting rid of Model X's that we've got out the back, because it doesn't exist in this day and age anymore, does it? It's about, if the customer is successful, exactly as you say, then they're going to value their connection with us, and they're going to come back and talk to us, and just the process of us working together, I guess, it becomes a smoother a more natural process. Absolutely. And then we all end up making money that way at the end of the day, and which is what we all want, basically. Like, we want success for all of our customers.
100%. I mean, we've done our classic segue into a whole another conversation.
Yeah, it is.
Nick, I know you've got some questions that you get regularly as an Ingram Micro new business.
Yeah, I would say, I guess a question I've had a lot recently is around Microsoft launching, or about to launch in May, the new Microsoft 365 Enterprise E7 SKU.
New toys.
Wow, big numbers. Well, do you think eventually it'll be an E10?
Probably. I mean, this
in the works.
This has been rumoured for a while. And I think it was announced about 2 weeks ago, but it is E5 with some add-ons.
Yeah.
The cost at the moment that we've been given from the States is $99.
Wow.
So it's just,
it wants to do everything for that point, like including drive my kids to school.
But it's called the Frontier SKU. So it's for those organizations that have got Copilot already, or they want it. They want to manage agents. They want the best possible security and compliance, because you get Entra Suite in there as well. So it's all of those components would cost more separately than the $99.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's a gap that has been like there for a while. I mean, there is always going to be somebody that just says that I want everything.
Yeah. And actually, this SKU E7 is not going to be for everyone.
No.
And actually, predominantly, it's going to be used by admins within a large organization. So you wouldn't see customers in our field that are 200 users needing
every single one on
No,
E7.
they just wouldn't. But you might need a few. But
weirdly, I think it'll be really small customers, like 5 users, that they might but they've just got, you know, big budgets because they want everything to be just right, and they don't want to think about it. Like, there are a few customers out there which are just don't want to think about it. Boom, I've got everything. Thanks.
If you're largely in the Microsoft stack and using the majority of the stack, then there will be use cases where, you know, 5 user companies, and that might be the most appropriate license for them. You know,
particularly if you are into specific areas of which need protection, like financial services, legal services, like all of the services, the professional services, I think, where you have data that's particularly critical, important, that you need to protect, or information like contracts worth millions of pounds, that you're looking after, property development, you name it. There's tons of reasons you can think why.
Which reminds me, I will need an E7 license when they're launched.
Hopefully you'll get one of those as part of your designation.
Fingers crossed.
But no, it comes with Agent 365, which is all around managing, deploying agents, so, and not just your Microsoft Copilot. It's really for an organization that's kind of leading the way on AI and agents. So if you're not one of those organizations, it's probably not going to be the SKU that you would need.
Yeah, we do have customers. We were talking about this earlier. We don't develop AI ourselves because we can't do everything, right? But we do have customers that have developers that work with AI, and they are very much power users. They are the people that are developing and working with Power BI. They're the people that are developing large language models in Azure. You name it, they're doing a bit of everything, because the key for them is to remain on the bleeding edge. You know, that is what allows them to keep their business differentiation in order to be kind of pushing the boundaries.
And that's what E7 is for.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly that. So, I think the other one that we get a lot down, certainly from a frequently asked, it's not necessarily exactly Microsoft 365 related, although it is in the Microsoft stack, is Azure. We are regularly asked about cost optimization for Azure.
Yeah, people go in because people will get a developer to develop stuff and love developers, they're great, but what they have a tendency, their focus is making something work well.
Yeah.
And that's great in a kind of pilot prototype model. Everything works brilliantly. But then as you roll out and scale up, you notice that your costs are exponentially rising. Yeah. And so being able to pull in and optimize things, like what the right is with Azure is every single setting is like a slidey bar from 0 to 100 in increments. And each click of that bar doubles the cost. So 5 clicks of the bar of CPU, 5 clicks of the RAM, so 5 clicks of the hard drive, the SQL Server, you can suddenly maxed out everything is an exponential cost. So just being able to pull it back, to work out how do you minimize these things. And that's before you even get to things like contracts. You get what's called reservations, which are basically the same as we were talking about earlier, is basically saying, I'm not on pay as you go, like I've got my website, my system, my CRM, whatever it happens to be that's sitting in Azure. it's going to be there for 3 years. I'm not going to turn it off. I need it. It's a core part of my business. So if I contract in for 3 years, boom, instant saving, basically.
It's worth noting as well with those reserved instances that Microsoft do reserve the right to charge a 12% exit fee, but they haven't done that at all.
Just to clarify that. So if you set up a 3-year reservation, you're committing yourself for 3 years to that product. But what Microsoft does, this is one of the really useful things, is they allow for the cancellation currently. So you can
spend, I believe, but
they give you a max of £50,000 worth of cancellations, but that's quite a lot. And especially given that people are unlikely to cancel a 3-year commitment after week 1, but although it does happen, and I guess that's what Sam is saying, is that they could change that so that they could charge you a 12% of the total value of the contract at some point. But as it stands, and as it has always standard going back, I'm not going to say, is it a decade at this point? Probably. It's been a long time. They allow you to cancel that 3-year contract at any time with those caveats. And so it's not worth not committing yourself, I guess, if you've got stuff in as yet at this point in time.
But even when it comes to specification, we've worked with a number of organisations to look at, where developers have developed systems and, they've got far more RAM than they need, and we've been able to reduce the model of the virtual machine that they're on to bring that cost down. Plus then the reservations, plus I know dealing with us, we have a level of partner discount available.
Absolutely.
I can't remember exactly what that number is, but for the sake of the podcast not aging, it's probably best not to reference that figure.
No, but a lot of the work we've done actually with Ingram as well is actually bringing people in. The only difficult bit that Microsoft makes is, in theory, it's like changing your gas supplier. You just go from supplier A to supplier B, the price drops because you're with supplier B. In practicality, there's a bit more to it, but typically we've done sessions with guys at Ingram and we've kind of migrated away from direct to Microsoft and immediate saving just through the process of migrating. Then we typically need to look at optimization, which involves, we need some level of talking to developers, because if you've got some things like a virtual machine, you can just tweak those slidey bars, great. Others, it's an app that's published. We can't republish the app because we're not the developer, so we have to talk to the developer. And then last part of that process is then things like reservations. Once you've got everything, it's working, it's not massively over-engineered with a Ferrari underneath. Then you can look at saying, well, okay, let's contract in, and at that point, I've seen bills go down to from 10 grand a month to 250 quid a month, like several times for several different people. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it for everyone. It's very dependent on what is there and what can be done, but it is a reoccurring saving that we're,
it's part of the service that we provide, isn't it? Is that cost optimization, and like you said, that's done through Ingram to some extent, leaning on the expertise from Ingram. I know recently we've done what we're called the cloud viability assessments for a few organizations, and that presented an opportunity for some credits from Microsoft, from that side of things.
There's tons of them, really. There's lots. There's almost always some kind of information from Microsoft.
There's funding programs for lots of things, so that's the thing. If you're ever kind of considering it, now is always the best time, because there's always something.
Always ask. As a customer, if you ask, then we can say, how about this? If it's one license for business standard, there probably is something. The initial thing is a trial at the end of the day. Well, that's 30 days of free usage.
And that's part of the things that, a lot of our customers won't see that go on behind the scenes. Is, from that side of things, we're looking at those cloud viability assessments and going, right, who meets the criteria for this? I can't remember what the specifics were, but they needed some certain number of servers, for example. And that enabled us then to kind of go, right, let's contact those customers. Some of those customers didn't take us up on the offer, some did. And that's enabled us then to deliver further value and allowed them to go, okay, well, actually, can we do the cloud? Would it work? What would that cost look like? And that's enabled us then to kind of, go forwards and, take a couple of those conversations forwards. One of the customers is looking now at a hybrid model, ironically, not for what we'd initially gone for, but it's opened the door into Azure for them for their booking system, for example.
That's what I was thinking of. And that's can't go into details. It's led to a whole separate project of a sequence of load balancers and servers and the like going into the cloud, which is I'm looking forward to. That's starting to happen next week, I think. So I'm looking forward to.
We've always referred to ourselves in the same way, but we rebranded 3 years ago and introduced our new slogan of trusted and reliable, and that's exactly what we want from the vendors and partners that we work with, and that's why we chose Ingram Micro.
Absolutely,
is that advice and that guidance guidance from Nick and through our CSM currently, Ollie, has been fantastic, and they are trusted and reliable people within that organisation.
Yeah, I mean, we started in 2004, I think it was, and I think I got an account. The things I did immediately was we set up the business. One was became a Microsoft partner, because where I'd worked before, we was a Microsoft partner and I was an MCC at the time. One was become a Cisco partner, because same thing, but Cisco accreditation. And the other was get an account with Ingram Micro, because I had an account with Ingram Micro at previous incarnations, basically. And Ingram was already a Cisco partner, a Microsoft partner. And so that is like 2004. I'm losing track. What year is it now? 2026. I mean, this is like a very long relationship at this point. Yeah. So it kind of does show that the important relationships do stand the test of time.
Yeah. Exactly that. Well, hopefully that takes you through our vendor, through Nick and Ingram Micro, success stories of how our relationship has developed and enabled us to deliver the service that we deliver. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Piran Talks Beyond the Service Desk. We look forward to catching you in the next one.